humans, I think we all have something of a desire to make sure that the things we have in our lives are in some way or another useful. Things often cost money, and especially in this economy, it's important to make sure you're getting your money's worth from the things you buy in the form of their usefulness. One of the cases in which this most heavily applies is that of paid software. As hip, cool, tech-literate teens, I and the rest of Gen Z strive to only use and download the fastest, sleekest, most versatile software money can buy. But not everything we buy is useful. Think posters, figurines, stuffed animals, uranium-235, all of those have little practical use in our day-to-day lives, but we still buy them because they're just friggin' cool. And believe it or not, examples of that can be found in paid software as well. Do I need to spend $58,300 on this orange sparkle time fedora for my Roblox avatar? No, but does it make me look cool as hell? Still no. You know what I mean. We've all spent money on useless but cool looking pixels before. But just how long have we been doing this? When was the first time someone hopped on their computer and blew some of their paycheck on digital garbage just because it looked kinda cool? The answer, as I found out recently, is much earlier than one might think. At least as far back as 2003, when Microsoft released the coolest yet most useless Windows XP feature I've ever heard of. A feature so pointless, so hyper-specific, yet with so much effort clearly put into it and a price tag to match, that it was forgotten by the public almost immediately after its release, condemning it to, in my opinion, criminal levels of undeserved total obscurity. Can I, nearly 22 years after this feature's catastrophic release, bring it back to life? Can I single-handedly yoink it out of the depths of obscurity and finally show it off to the audience that it deserves? This is the story of how I discovered and attempted to resurrect Party Mode, the most uselessly cool feature in Windows XP history. Finding a swashbuckled copy of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition wouldn't be too hard. I was beginning to wonder whether Digital Media Edition was even worth the trouble I was going through to get it. Our story begins not too long ago, when I was hard at work doing research for the last video I uploaded. I am obsessed with Windows Media Player skins. I highly recommend watching that video before this one, as it helps a lot with context. But for those of you who don't feel like it, here's a basic summary of what you need to know from that video. Windows Media Player skins were files commonly seen in the early 2000s that would change the look of your Windows Media Player app. That's that app that opens up whenever you want to play a video or audio file on your computer. Most people don't use it very much nowadays, but back in the early 2000s, before media streaming services like YouTube were invented, it was all people really had for playing media. So basically, Windows thought, hey, if people are going to be looking at this interface so much, we might as well make it interesting. And so they did, implementing a skin mode in the year 2000 that let people use skin files to change literally anything they desired about the UI, from the size of things to their locations to the amount of features it had, and so much more. Seriously, these skins were so unique and customizable that they transformed the default Windows Media Player into an entirely different application almost. To give you an idea of what I mean, here are just a few of my favorites. We've got Headspace, an ominous looking green head whose ears are replaced with giant speakers that you can pull controls out with, like some sort of weird music-based Hellraiser torture method. Le Crapouillet?
Le Crapouillot.
Le Crapouillot, which spawns a bunch of silly animated geckos on your screen. Alienware Invader, which comes with a full-on intro animation. And Darkling, which, what? The selected skin is designed for party mode and will not work in Windows Media Player. Select a valid player skin and then try again. Okay. Scriptwriter? Script writing candy?
Yeah?
You messed up the script a little bit. You included a skin that doesn't work with the regular media player. It says it needs something called party mode. I don't know what that is, but I'm pretty sure we don't have it.
No, girl, you're supposed to tell the audience what party mode is now. That's the transition to the next part of the video.
Transition to the next part of the video. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Out of all of the skins that I looked at while combing through random skin archives in my last video, Darkling was the only one to give me this error. So my curiosity got the better of me, and I took a bit of a side tangent to research what party mode was. To truly get across what this feature was, I first need to explain a mostly forgotten piece of Microsoft history called Microsoft Plus. Microsoft Plus was a line of CD-ROMs produced by Microsoft that would give your Windows OS a bunch of extra features, provided that you had the version of Windows your CD was meant for, of course. It was basically a Fortnite battle pass for your home computer. Microsoft made 2 of these for Windows XP, a boring regular normie edition and a digital media edition, whose add-ons were all focused on digital media in some way. That includes digital images, videos, music, any kind of media that appears digitally rather than physically. For only 19.95 cold hard American dollars, you'd gain access to Plus Photo Story 2. With more ease than ever before, you too can create overlong slideshows of your vacation photos to bore any misled soul that chooses to be your house guest for hours on end, now with special panning and zooming effects. Plus effects and transitions for Windows Movie Maker 2. Make your movies even more impressive with 50 new video effects and transitions that are sure to please any audience. Your history presentation about the Revolutionary War is sure to impress even the most coffee-deprived 5th grade teacher. The Plus Portable Audio Devices Power Toy, and Plus Sync and Go for Pocket PC, which let you effortlessly sync media between your home PC and Pocket PC. We are absolutely certain that no revolutionary devices will come out in the next few years to make the Pocket PC a totally obscure and forgotten relic of the past. And a bunch of random music-related features, including 8 of those media player skins I mentioned earlier, and Plus Party Mode, which is, in my opinion, the stupidest and most useless perk Microsoft could have possibly had the audacity to charge money for. It's party time! With Plus Party Mode for Windows Media Registered Trademark Player, you can enjoy your party without worrying about the music. Just pick your playlists or tracks from Windows Media Player and start the party. Don't worry about party guests accessing your personal files. You can turn on the Party Mode privacy option to help protect your information. You can choose from a variety of eye-catching skins, such as colorful butterflies and plasma bubbles, to match your party theme. You can also add great effects like crossfading, which gradually overlaps the end of one song with the beginning of the next, just like DJs do at dance clubs. So if you didn't quite catch what party mode was from that, imagine, you just picked up a shiny new copy of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition. You're now an absolute media powerhouse. No one can cry to Evanescence for hours on end in quite as much style as you can. So you decide to celebrate your glow up by throwing a party. You invite your whole high school. 300 people will all be packed into your house. It'll be the biggest rager of the year by a landslide. Of course, any good party's gotta have music. So what are you gonna use to play music for the entire party? Why, your 2004 Sony Vaio PC with 512 megabytes of RAM tucked away in the corner of your living room, of course. But you think to yourself, 300 is a lot of people. I don't know all these people very well. Some of them might have evil intentions. Some of them might be dastardly villains, sneaky little scumbags. They might go snooping around in my PC if I leave it open to play music, and look at all my bank statements, my social security info, my unsavory images, all of which I of course keep easily findable and accessible on my PC. If only there was a special media player UI that would take up the entire screen, locking everyone out of most of the PC, only letting them select songs from my specially curated party playlist. And it would be really cool if there was a random bit of scrolling text somewhere that anyone could edit to say whatever they wanted, and an X button so that anyone could close this UI out at any time if they wanted to. I'd trust my guests not to abuse those features at all, even though I wouldn't trust them not to go digging for my sensitive files. Sadly, such a high-tech invention probably only exists several centuries in the future. My party is ruined. But fear not, citizen, because with your newly purchased copy of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition, you have Party Mode to fulfill all of those requirements, and you and your guests can have the time of your lives, crouching in a circle around a beige early 2000s PC, trying your best to hear the Black Eyed Peas through your shitty beige speakers. I want you to just pause the video right now and try to think of any other use case besides the one I just said in which this feature would be useful. If you can, pop it in the comments because that's literally the only one I can think of. And yet, despite how useless it is, I love it. I think it's really cool. Because when I realized that I couldn't use this Darkling skin on my modern PC, I went to search up images of it to see how it was meant to look. And since party mode was such an obscure feature that you had to pay money for, there were only a few. But these few images feature the single coolest Windows Media Player skin I've ever seen. It's such a well-crafted piece of artwork, with expert use of shadows, highlights, and metallic texture. And the fact that it takes up your entire screen makes it look like an evil alien mecha virus that's completely taken over your computer. The windows being projected out of tiny beams of light like holograms really adds to the immersion, and it looks like there were different color modes besides red too, so you could really make this skin fit any theme you wanted. I really would have loved to see the skin in action and get the full experience of it, not just images, but unfortunately that's not an option for me. Party mode was only available with Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition, which would only work with Windows XP, and I don't have a Windows XP machine. Windows XP came out before I was even born. I knew there were ways to emulate it digitally, but that was beyond my skill level, and I'd already spent way too long on this tangent, so I unfortunately had to move on. I did put one desperate plea for help in my video. If anyone happens to have a Windows XP emulator and a copy of Plus Digital Media Edition, try to get this skin to work and upload a video of it if you're successful. We need to see this thing in all its glory. And then I had no choice but to lay the idea of getting this skin working again to rest. Until a couple weeks later, that is. A couple of weeks after my brief dive into party mode, something happened to reignite my interest in it. Something, oddly enough, completely unrelated to party mode. Basically, for every Windows Media Player skin I presented in my last video, I presented it on top of a wallpaper to match its theme. At one point, I talked about a batch of extremely high-quality Alienware branded skins. Later, during the editing process, I found out that each of these skins were actually shipped as part of a special theme that included overhauls of all of the Windows XP UI, from the taskbar to the icons to, of course, the wallpaper. Alienware shipped these themes all together in a special proprietary app called Alien GUIs, which came free with Alienware PCs. When I found this out, I really wanted to get my hands on those original wallpapers to present those media players with, but unfortunately, I couldn't find the unedited originals on Google Images. What I did find was a swashbuckled copy of the original Alien GUIs app from the early 2000s. It had good reviews, so I gave it a download, and fuck. My PC was built within the past 2 decades, so I definitely don't have a 32-bit system. Like with party mode, the only way I'd even have a shot at getting this thing to work would be by emulating Windows XP, which I still didn't know how to do. But this was now my second reason to learn. I also figured that if I'm gonna be producing more content about early versions of Windows in the future, it'd probably be wise of me to have a way to actually run early versions of Windows. So I finally caved, and began looking into my options for virtual machines, or VMs for short. I ended up going with a software called VirtualBox, which was actually pretty easy for me to figure out on my own. It's a pretty intuitive software. Then I had to find a swashbuckled copy of Windows XP, because I was not about to pay money for a 24-year-old OS that might not even work properly, which also turned out to be a bit easier than expected. I won't say where I found it, but all you really need to know is that you can find it through a very simple Google search. Once I had that, I had very little trouble setting up a VirtualBox VM with it. The only thing left to do was connect it to my modern computer's file system, copy Alien GUIs over to Windows XP, and bing bang boom, it works perfectly. Well, almost perfectly. Once I had the app installed, it was quite easy to find the wallpapers I was looking for in the program files. Does this count as hacking, by the way? I don't know for sure, but I think I might have just pulled off my first ever hack here. Could I be the mysterious hacker known as 4chan? I don't know, who's to say? So, I've completed Objective 1. I've secured the original wallpapers from this decades-old piece of adware that no one cares about anymore. Now it was time for Objective 2. Get party mode running. Since it was so easy for me to find swashbuckled copies of Alien GUIs and Windows XP, I had a feeling finding a copy of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition wouldn't be too hard either, and lo and behold, I was right. But a couple things stuck out to me as potential signs that, even though this software did appear to be genuine, installing it might be a bit harder than finding it. Firstly, the first sentence of its description. This CD came without a sleeve, so if it needs activation like the retail release, this copy may not be good for anything but reference. I pity past me for not understanding how important that sentence would turn out to be later on. Second, instead of being an exe file like most applications, this software came in an ISO file. I had only seen an ISO file once before at this point, and it was just the hour or so before when I found that swashbuckled swashbuckled copy of Windows XP. At first, I thought that meant this was an entirely new Windows operating system, and I tried to make a whole new VM out of it like an idiot. But after a bit more research, I found out that all an ISO file is a copy of the data stored on a CD, which makes sense given that there's a picture of the CD this file was distributed on literally front and center on the download page. I then figured out that I needed to upload this file to the virtual CD drive in my VM, which I didn't even know was a thing, but in hindsight, very helpful VirtualBox, thank you. And would you look at that, it's the setup window. GG's Microsoft, it was pretty annoying to figure out, but I finally have this swashbuckled software package working, and there's nothing you can say or do to... Oh, yeah, remember the very first sentence of the description of this file?
This CD came without a sleeve, so if it needs activation like the retail release, this copy may not be good for anything but reference.
Well, apparently, it does, in fact, need activation. I was accosted along my journey by an evil wizard, the Plus Product Activation Wizard, and much like a fiendish troll, he would not let me pass without paying his toll. Specifically, the toll he wanted was a product activation key. Luckily, I was somewhat prepared for his trickery. For you see, like any good swashbuckler, I'd checked the reviews of this thing before downloading it, and one of them mentioned a serial number. Sure enough, it was the right amount of digits. This was indeed the product key the wizard sought. But a dark omen was cast over my find by the second review in the list. Key below has been blacklisted by Microsoft. Must provide your own key. Sure enough, when I entered that key and clicked next, no dice. The wizard wouldn't budge. But I'd come so far, I couldn't give up now. Surely there had to be a way to bypass this key somewhere out there. This is a 20-year-old piece of software after all, which makes it an ancient relic in internet years. Someone had to have decompiled it at some point and figured out a way around this pesky wizard. My search very quickly led me to the dark, untamed internet badlands known as... GitHub. There, I found an actually pretty legitimate looking tool called Universal MS Key Toolkit, which claimed to be able to generate a working key for any early 2000s Microsoft product that required activation. It took a while to set up and figure out how to use, because for some reason every program on GitHub seems to have a convoluted install process that they don't explain in nearly enough detail, and documentation that takes 10,000 years to read. I also may be kinda stupid and didn't realize that Windows NT is the current version of Windows. Whoops. I thought it was some ancient archaic version of Windows, my bad. But I eventually did manage to get it working. Awesome, we have a key. So, trying not to show fear on my face and trembling internally, I brought my key before the wizard. And... rejected yet again. UMSKT did say in their FAQ that it might take 2 or 3 tries to get a working key, so I tried again. Nothing. Tried again? Still nothing. Tried a 3rd time. Still nothing. Tried a 4th time. Zip. Tried a 5th time. Zilch. Tried a 6th time. No dice. It seems this wizard was simply too powerful to be fooled by a keygen. He saw straight through my lies, and would not back down until I gave him what he truly desired. At this point, I was starting to doubt myself. I was beginning to wonder whether Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition was even worth the trouble I was going through to get it. Sure, the keygen I'd just tried had turned out to be what it claimed to be, but with my level of tech skills, I knew I'd probably stumble onto a virus eventually if I kept searching long enough. Getting to poke fun at all the oddities that this ancient software package had to offer would not at all justify having my PC transformed into a Bitcoin mine. I decided to try one last-ditch internet search to find a solution, and if I couldn't find anything soon, I'd have to give it up. But instead of a solution, all I found was one more sign telling me to turn back. I stumbled across this YouTube video, Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition on Windows 10, in which the creator has a legitimate copy of Digital Media Edition, with an untouched legitimate product key. He hands it over to the wizard, but the wizard, instead of letting him pass, reveals the true extent of his own treachery. Microsoft Plus Product Activation was not able to activate Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition for the following reason. The Microsoft Plus activation wizard cannot activate Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition. Gotta love when apps are just like, we can't do this thing. Why can't you do this thing? Cause we can't, mind your own business. But the YouTuber knew the real reason why the wizard wouldn't budge.
This is most likely because, well, the activation servers for this are probably down. I think I had this exact same thing happen under that Windows XP VM that I tried a few years ago. So, you see when it tries to connect there, that's when it actually causes problems.
I should have known better than to trust the words of an evil wizard. This treacherous scum had been playing me from the very beginning. He had no intention of following through on his promises even if I did give him the key he sought. He'd apparently had the power to do so at one time through servers provided to him by the great god Microsoft, but those had been revoked from him long ago, probably as punishment for his evil deeds. Now he simply sat at the gates to Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition, collecting keys from wayward travelers only to do nothing with them but add them to his accursed hoard of greed. The YouTuber was able to get past him anyway, but likely through some sort of powerful magic unknown to me. I knew deep in my heart that even if I did manage to find the correct key, I wouldn't be able to skirt past the wizard like that. It seemed my journey would be fruitless, after all. But, just as I was about to turn back, a shiny glimmer of hope caught my eye. A second swashbuckling source, claiming to have a copy of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition. It didn't have as many views or reviews as the first copy I'd found, but it did have something arguably even more important. Detailed instructions on how to use the files contained within this zip folder to get the software working without having to register. This was exactly what I needed. If I could skip the online registration process, then the wizard would have no power over me. The registration was the stamp of approval I needed to access the treasures hidden within this ISO file. Sure enough, inside this zip folder was not only an ISO, but also a reg file. Reg files are used to edit things in the Windows registry, which in Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition's case meant filling in some values to trick the computer into thinking Digital Media Edition was successfully activated. I ran it on the VM, installed the new ISO, entered the key which was actually provided in the instructions unlike with the previous one, and to my delight, the wizard gladly accepted it. He then proceeded to try the same trick he pulled on that YouTuber, but I, like the YouTuber, now had a way around it. The last step in the instructions was, let it activate, but don't register. Maybe a little bit of a language barrier there, but I was pretty sure I knew what it meant. Instead of following any of these red herrings, I clicked next. The wizard gave me a final plea of desperation. Plus Digital Media Edition has been successfully installed on your computer but was unable to be activated. Plus Digital Media Edition must be successfully activated before you can use any of its features. But I knew this was a lie. With the reg file, the wizard couldn't touch me. I clicked finish, restarted the system when prompted, and with our successful activation of Microsoft Plus Digital Media Edition, we now have access to many interesting obsolete features, which I'd definitely be down to make a future video on if you guys are interested, by the way. Let me know in the comments. But the only one we have time for in this video is Party Mode. This feature is so forgotten that only a few images exist of it on the entire internet, and they're all pretty low res, so I was excited to get to truly explore what Party Mode had to offer for the first time.
Dun, dun, dun. Da, da, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to this thing, but to be honest, in this moment, I didn't really care. I was still very excited, because looking at that welcome screen, I realized that I'm probably one of only a few people to ever see it within the past decade or so, and definitely the first person to give it any publicity in modern times. I know it's stupid, I know that putting Rediscoverer of Microsoft Plus Party Mode in my Tinder bio, I say that like I'm straight enough to even use Tinder, oh my god, is not gonna sway people's swiping hands very much, but every first is significant to human history somehow, and it felt really exciting and surreal to be able to claim one for my own, no matter how small. To be able to see something last seen by large amounts of people nearly 20 years ago, and then expose that something to, hopefully, large amounts of people once again, it feels poetic. It feels awesome. It feels like you guys probably want me to stop waffling around and get on with exploring party mode, so let's go ahead and do that. Before starting your party, you can specify your party mode settings. First is the privacy option, which blocks access to desktop and other programs while party mode is running, and returns to the logon screen when party mode quits. I kinda thought privacy was the main draw of party mode, but I guess if all you want is a giant media player to take up your whole screen, which is actually the case for my purposes, having this be optional is pretty helpful. Then we have the now playing options. You can crossfade your songs,
just like DJs do at dance clubs.
Change the visualization pattern when the track changes, specify when you see each track's information, and of course, specify which content your guests can access. Then there's the marquee options. Remember earlier when I said,
and it would be really cool if there was a random bit of scrolling text somewhere that anyone could edit to say whatever they wanted.
That's what the marquee is, and if this guests can add comments to marquee option is checked on, anyone at any time can make it say anything they want. And finally, the main draw of this entire feature, at least in my opinion, the skin option. To my delight, Darkling came pre-installed with party mode, along with several other skins. But by following some links on the Wayback Machine, I was able to find and download some additional skins from Microsoft's official store. These were actually the only party mode skins I was able to find though. In total, we only have 14. It makes sense considering how unpopular party mode was, but just in case anyone watching this video happens to have more, feel free to send me an email. And of course, I'll be sure to leave a download link to these skins in the description. Okay. I can't put it off any longer. It's time to start a party and see if this thing actually works. We'll start with the default skin. I don't want to get my hopes up in case this thing goes wrong. There it is. All 983,040 pixels of pure, unadulterated partying. I've done it. I've resurrected the most uselessly cool Windows XP feature to ever exist. And now, all that's left to do is break it down. Are you fucking kidding me? After all that work, all that research, all that risking my computer getting inundated with viruses, the one skin that I really wanted to see working was the one skin that didn't work. I'm only exaggerating by a little bit. The only other skin that had a similar problem where the screen was blank except for a few random boxes was Crystal Clockwork. Every other skin worked exactly as intended. That bit I did earlier about the evil activation wizard messing with my plans was just a bit initially, but at this point I wouldn't have been surprised if it turned out there was actually an evil wizard trying to mess with me specifically. Even more annoyingly, this glitch deleted all the buttons out of existence, including the X button, which meant I couldn't close out of this screen and had to restart the whole VM. I hoped that doing so would fix the skin, that this was just a momentary glitch that would correct itself with a restart. But nope. Crystal Clockwork and Darkling were still out to lunch. Tried a third time, still nothing. A fourth time, zip. A fifth time, zilch. And you know the rest. Eventually, I had to just call it quits. To have come so far only to have the rug pulled out from under me at the very end like that was truly disheartening, but you know what? Maybe this was just how it was meant to be. Maybe this was the universe's way of teaching me a lesson about expectations. Sometimes, even when you think you do everything right, something can still not turn out the way you planned. It's important to not set an expected ending for something in your mind, and find happiness in the journey rather than the destination. It sounds cliche, but it's the truth. I may not have gotten the skin I really wanted, but I did get 12 others, 13 if you count the broken skins as half points, and that's still an A grade in most public school systems. I also learned how to set set up a VM with a retro version of Windows, and get around restrictions on super old paywalled software. And at the end of it all, I got to see a pretty awesome party. All in all, that's a major win in my book. Maybe it's okay to let Darkling rest, and cherish all the other memories I made along the way. Okay, I lied. I gotta try this thing one more time. Are you fucking kidding me again? Just for shits and giggles, with no expectations whatsoever, I tried Darkling again one last time the following day, and would you look at that? It works perfectly. Crystal Clockwork works too. I still have no idea why this happened. It only ever happened with these two skins in particular, and it actually happened a few times after this miraculous resurrection, but aside from those few hiccups, these skins have continued to work pretty consistently ever since. It's like they were drunk on the job at first and needed some time to sleep the booze off. You'd best believe the instant I saw this screen, I whipped out my recording software faster than iShowSpeed and grabbed some video of this thing. So, ladies, gentlemen, and gentle they-thems, I hereby present to you the first ever video recording of the Darkling skin on YouTube. Personally, it's every bit as cool as I thought it would be. The colors, perfect. The boxes, perfectly positioned. The animations, non-existent actually. There are no animations, things just appear and disappear in one frame. Kinda disappointing, honestly. I thought by the looks of some of these shutter thingies over some of the buttons that they would open and close in a circular motion like a camera shutter, and that maybe these boxes would appear and disappear with some sort of cool hologram animation kinda like this. But there are at least some cool button press effects that I appreciated. There's also 3 different colors you can choose from: red, green, and blue. Each color also has an option for silver accents or dark accents. This skin is everything I hoped it would be. I'm super glad I was able to get it running and show it to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. By the way, I later extracted all the files used to make this skin, and I think I might have found a secret 4th color option. Some of these buttons and dialogue boxes are purple. You can't access this color with the color picker, but if you mess around with VirtualBox's screen size settings, look what we have here. I think I've gone too deep. I think I've discovered things no one was ever supposed to know about this skin. I'd better stop before someone